I'm Tim, welcome to Watch You Want, and thanks for logging on. Today we're looking at the Roger Dubuis Aquamare stainless steel with 18 karat white gold bezel, 41 millimeters. This watch, like all watches featured on our YouTube channel, represents actual inventory in stock and available for immediate purchase and delivery on our retail website, watchyouwant.com. And if you like getting the latest luxury watch news, views, and reviews in daily video format, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Watch You Want Inc. Now, I love these early Roger Dubuis sports watches from the Sports Activity Watch family because they combine the offbeat character of Roger Dubuis design with the impeccable finish of Geneva seal watchmaking. And on the wrist, this 41 millimeter rectangular, actually more square than rectangular, Aquamare is a perfect fit for my smaller 6 1/3 16 centimeter circumference wrist. Now, I should mention that there was a pure rectangle in this family, the so-called Seymour, and then the Easy Diver was the more conventional round bezel sort of cushion case. But this might be the best balance between the two because it's indisputably Roger Dubuis with a fit and a finish and, quite honestly, a machine aesthetic that's second to none. Now, the rectangle is effectively a cushion case. It's also cambered, so it curves, it arcs from end to end, and the lugs are part of that, essentially an extension of the case rather than separate elements. They ensure that the watch rides up and over and around a wrist. Now, my wrist has a fairly even profile. It's sort of flat across the top, oval and cross section, typical of what most guys will have. Most guys will have a slightly larger wrist, but this watch with broad lugs, a big strap, and a chunky sports aesthetic can easily accommodate a larger wrist. But sometimes it's hard to find a larger watch that works well on a smaller wrist, and that's what you have in this Roger Dubuis Aquamare in 41 millimeters. Now, the other key to the ergonomic success of this watch, besides the fact that it has a nice cushion case sort of 1-to-1 aspect ratio, length to height, it also has that cambered case and a fantastic natural rubber, brown natural rubber, latex-based textured strap. Now, the nice thing about it, besides the fact that it's very supple and flexible and feels great against the skin, is that it does have a sort of relief grid on the bottom. I like to call this out when I see it on a watch because it's really a mark of distinction for a company that makes fine straps and knows how to outfit a sports watch correctly. These little relief channels allow moisture and heat and sweat to escape off your skin and find their way to the outside on hot days or during activity. And if you are wearing this watch, again, 990 feet water resistant, that's 300 meters, in salt water, you want some sort of channel to get the salt, to get the sand out of there. This watch gives you that with an outstanding strap and an equally outstanding clasp. You can see the condition of this watch, impeccable, virtually indistinguishable from new, and quite honestly, that's exactly how you'd want to get a clasp of this quality. Contrasting finish, no single part of this watch, including the interior of the clasp buckle itself, is unfinished. You can see the recurring RD motif inside. Everything's either brushed, polished, or satin. Everything that you see and everything that you touch is of the highest quality, and that's just the clasp. Now, I love a double trigger release clasp because that's the ultimate in security. It's not friction fit, it's not single trigger. You have to positively depress both triggers to take that watch off, and that's exactly what you want on a burly sports watch, and believe me, this fits the bill. Each end of the strap is secured by a robust screw. It's more expensive to manufacture, and it can be just a little bit more time consuming when you want to swap a strap, but the bottom line is, with screws holding in those bars, you have absolute security when this Geneva Hallmark watch is on your wrist in the ocean, on a boat, or in the deep end of your local pool. The bottom line is it'll be in good hands on your forearm. Now, the case back is part of the highlight. Geneva seal movement caliber RD14. I'm going to save that for the conclusion of the showcase because this watch has a dial that just has to be seen to be believed. The bottom line is it almost reads as an extension of the bezel or vice versa. The bezel might read as an extension of the dial, but it has a dynamic, almost 3D guilloche geometry that splays outboard and continues in the lines and the character of this virtually seamless 18 karat white gold bezel. From one to the other, from the outside in or from the inside out, it reads as one large square continuity, not a separate bezel and dial, but one large mass of beautifully finished, artfully articulated white metal. This is a charismatic watch, And you can see the relief of the numerals, the relief of the indices, the contrasting satin and polished finish of that white gold bezel is absolutely radiant in direct light. The polished white gold elements, the indices on the dial, the Roman numerals, the hands at center, minutes and hours, give this watch a character and an exuberance that are simply unmistakable, unique, and absolutely irresistible. I love the look of this watch. I love the radiance of this watch. For me, this is the winner in the Roger Dubuis Sports Activity Watch family. And you note a flourish of color in the depth rating at center, as well as the red luminova of the hour and minute hands. There's a lot of detail going on here that partitions the dial internally. Now you can see the railroad minutes track within the inner dial, but you can also see the grid, and you can see how the inner dial is constrained from the hour track by a series of guilloche lines that run on the outside of that railroad track minutes dial. You can see the unique geometries of the guilloche in the dial that create that three-dimensional explosive, almost tunnel-like effect from the center outwards. You really do feel like you're gazing into something with depth, with several dimensions. And this watch just has that kind of character, that dynamism. Even sitting still, it looks like there's some sort of motion at play here. And in fact, there is motion, thanks to the Roger Dubuis. We're finally in the movement. The Roger Dubuis manufacture RD14 caliber, automatic winding, 48-hour power reserve, beautifully hand-finished. This is a Geneva seal movement, like all Roger Dubuis are, and this is how the watch really sort of defies the lines that are drawn between genres, because typically the Geneva seal level of finish and the sports watch genre don't overlap much. The bottom line is that this watch blends them, and it's unrepentant for doing so. You'll see everything from gorgeous, fat, mirror-polished anglage in all of the screw sinks, in all of the jewel sinks. You'll see gorgeous, black-polished screw heads. You'll see tight and evenly spaced perlage on the base plate. You'll see elements drawn from the heritage of Geneva watchmaking, including separate cocks for the balance wheel, the escape wheel, and the fourth wheel. Everything is hand-finished and to the highest standard. Even the case clamp screws that retain the movement within the case are finished to a polished, mirrored shine, and you never see that. This limited edition of 888 watches is an exceptional piece. You hardly ever see them, so while in theory there are 888 in the world, you're unlikely to ever encounter one. For all practical intents and purposes, this watch will be a one-off on your wrist. And there are a lot of thoughtful details that set the Roger Dubuis apart. Aside from the unlikely combination of Geneva seal with a sports watch aesthetic, apart from the dynamism of that integrated bezel and dial design, you also have thoughtful flourishes, like this little dummy cap. The dummy cap, which looks like a crown, covers the actual crown, which is a screw-down unit, and what it does is it visually expands the crown and allows it to integrate with the broad crown guards so that it seems more a piece of this case rather than a small outcropping out of proportion to the dial and the bezel. It seems like a burly, robust extension of the chunky aesthetic that dominates the watch. And I should mention that it also makes for additional contrast in the finish between the alternately brushed and polished elements of the outside bezel and the brushed elements, the vertically brushed elements of the case. You have the high polish elements of the dummy cap and the shoulder guards. So this watch has a lot of surprise and delight features. Features that distinguish it not just from other Roger Dubuis models, but from, quite honestly, any other high horology sports watches. This watch is dynamism incarnate, appears to be in motion even when standing still. Every element is finished to the highest standard, and yet it is an exuberant, fun, get it wet and get it dirty outdoor summertime sports watch. And you can see this Roger Dubuis Aquamare stainless steel with 18-karat white gold bezel, 41 millimeters automatic winding, manufactured Geneva seal movement on our website, watchyouwant.com.